Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and my law firm assists nurses with nursing board issues. Today, I'm going to talk about what is the most common reason or reasons for a nurse to get disciplined by a board of nursing. In my mind, kind of all discipline stems from two categories: clinical and behavioral. So let's kind of break down each one. So as far as getting in trouble for a clinical incident, obviously any kind of deviation from the standard of care, practicing outside of scope, missed medication, documentation errors, patient abuse. I would say those are probably the five most common ways for someone to get in trouble clinically. One thing to keep in mind when a complaint is filed, and in the case of a clinical complaint, it's going to be from the patient's family, a coworker, or the employer. So they'll come from one of those four sources. And in that case, what will happen is the board, will get the complaint, and then they'll send notice to the nurse, and then they'll likely simultaneously subpoena the employment file from the nurse's employer, along with subpoenaing any patient records that would be a part of the investigation. So one thing to keep in mind, and this is kind of general, this goes for the process for almost all of the states. Obviously can vary state to state, but this is kind of the general process. So it's very likely that the board will send a subpoena to your employer. So many times if a nurse is dismissed from a position due to some kind of clinical incident and they get a new job, when they put that new job down on the questionnaire that the board wants from the nurse, they're likely going to send a subpoena to your new employer as well. So that's something to think about when to address the complaint with the employer. So in the case of a clinical issue, once they get all the records, they get the employment file, they're going to look to see if the nurse has ever had any previous issues with discipline at work, any corrective action, verbal coaching, counseling, any kind of similar incidents for whatever it is. Maybe it's a missed medication. Have they done that in the past? And then ultimately, when they have all that information gathered, they'll likely do some kind of interview with the nurse. And then at some point, it'll either be disposed of or forwarded to the board for review. The other type of, reason why a nurse would get in trouble is behavioral. And there's a bunch of things under behavioral. So one could be a criminal charge or conviction. It could be substance abuse issues. It could be mental health problems. It could be just the inability to get along with people at work, and then boundary issues involving some kind of sexual relationship with a patient. I'm also going to lump in diverting narcotics into this. I guess you could put that in either category, but certainly there are, it's probably a lot more than anyone expects. A lot of nurses end up diverting narcotics, and I find that's almost 95 times out of 100 due to personal substance abuse issues. Very rarely would it be them diverting for either resale or for maybe a family member. I've had a couple where they were doing it for their significant other. So as far as behavioral goes, this varies state by state, but some states require a nurse to report a charge. Other states require a nurse to report a criminal conviction immediately, and then others wait to report the criminal conviction until whenever their renewal is. So obviously based upon whatever the criminal outcome was and what it was, that can easily lead to discipline. I mean, the most common for nurses are domestic violence / assault, shoplifting, and DUIs. That's makes up the majority of the criminal incident with nurses. Some states have a rule that states if the nurse is convicted of a felony, it's an automatic revocation of a license. Something to take into account many times. When we have a nurse who's been convicted of a felony, the main goal is to, for their criminal defense attorney to get that knocked down to whatever they can. That would not be considered a felony. So criminal stuff, behavioral issues. It could be, as I said before, mental health, or the ability to get along with coworkers, or substance abuse. Most, or I guess all of the states have some kind of confidential monitoring program, which would involve random drug tests, some kind of supervision at work, usually AA/NA participation, counseling. This is a good option for nurses who want to keep their record clean and don't want permanent discipline on their record. And it also provides them with structure to hopefully get over whatever their issues are. Many of these alternative to discipline programs can not only be for substance abuse, it can also be for mental health and then physical issues as well. So that's kind of the broad category of behavioral concerns that can lead to board discipline. Maybe some words of advice on how to handle an investigation. I find that maybe a nurse who has come to me after submitting a response or even after an interview, they tend to overshare, especially in the written response. It's better to keep it short and sweet. And especially, there's some serious considerations about what to disclose if there's a pending criminal action as well, because, simultaneously, the board's going to investigate the criminal, kind of track that's going on. And what you don't want is to disclose a bunch of things to the nursing board and then ultimately maybe share it with the police. And then that would lead the police to take action against you. I mean, if you had to choose between going to jail and losing a license, it's an obvious choice. So those are the ways that a nurse can be disciplined, or at least the most common ways. Hopefully that's helpful. If you have any questions, you can always contact my law firm at the phone number listed below, or you can reach us through our website, chellelaw.com, CHELLE law.com. Appreciate you watching the video.